Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talking Politics podcast with Larry Schweikart, Stu Turley. I'm David Blackmon. Larry is America's history teacher, author of a series of wonderful books that everyone needs to buy and read for your own edification. And Larry, tell folks before we do anything else, tell folks where they can find your books because I forgot to do this last week.
Sure. It's at wildworldofhistory.com. And you can also get a full curriculum in U.S. or world history for high schoolers. I teach every lesson in video. If you're more into politics, go to the wildworldofpolitics.com, where I have a political commentary 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then there's 40 or 50 hours of video programming that I've done. That my most recent one that I completed was Integrity with Winston Churchill, 21 videos. And I just started Integrity, Billy Graham. And so I have my first video loaded on that series. You can find that at The Insider.
At The Insider. And tell folks where you are on Substack, where all of us are.
Oh, just Larry Schweikart. As long as you spell my name right, you'll get me. I have both a free and a subscription side. I'm also on Twitter. This one's a little harder at Larry SCHWE 94560.
Yeah, the Twitter handles are kind of hard sometimes.
Well, they killed my big account of Larry Schweikart. I still don't have that back. I'm at 10% of what I had. So
yeah, it's infuriating. Thank God Elon Musk bought that place. I swear. Otherwise, we'd be deep in the soup right now. As it is, though, we're not too deep in the soup, and things are starting to look a little brighter, aren't they?
Yeah, it's across the board. I kind of felt like a whole shift occurred over the last weekend.
Me too.
And I asked my my co-host of Decision USA, our broadcast on election night, Seth Keshel, what he thought, because he's really into the numbers and looking at the voter registrations. And he said, I smell it.
Yeah, and you can see it kind of percolating up in the polling data too now, which always takes a few weeks longer than the actual data on registration and early voting applications. We're almost 4 weeks down the road now from the September 10th debate. Tomorrow will be a week away downstream from the vice presidential debate, which was, I think you'd have to say, an unmitigated disaster for Tim Walz, wouldn't you?
Well, anytime you say that I'm best friends with a school shooter, it can't go too well.
It can't be good. I even got Saturday Night Live turning on you now.
Shooters. I don't think that you can just say that without doing it. Let me play the clip.
School shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA.
I'm friends with school shooters. How wow.
He tried to explain that the next day, but I don't think he did an especially good job of it, did he?
No, not according to anything that I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, he tried to explain it away saying, well, I'm friends with David Hogg. Well, David Hogg was a Parkland high school student where that big school shooting took place. When was that? 2014, I want to say. I can't remember the exact year. Anyway, he wasn't a school shooter, but Walz tried to explain, well, I had David Hogg in mind when I was saying that. But then he said, it's something I'm passionate about. Well, what's something you're passionate about? Being friends with school shooters or being a buddy of David Hogg's? I mean, who cares?
It's sort of like saying I'm friends with slashers, and you say, well, I really meant my barber.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's he's got a sharp pair of scissors. I just don't, and I honestly have to say, other than Biden's complete meltdown in June, when was that? June 27th. I don't believe I've ever seen a worse debate performance than what Walz put on. last week. Can you, I mean, maybe Dan Quayle with Lloyd Benson would be comparable, I guess. And,
Yeah,
Stockdale, we can't forget about Stockdale.
Yeah, I tend to watch clips later, not the live debate, because I just hate these things. I have better things to do. J.D. Vance was cool, composed, looked mature. He could have gone for the jugular and just embarrassed him like crazy, but didn't. And so now many women are in love with J.D. Vance because he's Trump without the Trump excesses, they think, which is
exactly. Well, don't you think that was part of his objective going into that debate? Because the campaign, Trump struggles with suburban women, especially mothers of children that are stay-at-home moms, spend an hour a day getting brainwashed by the shrews on The View, and so I think really part of Vance's assignment was to not be Trump in this debate and not go for the jugular, which would turn those people off all over again.
Well, Trump has won suburban white women in 2020.
Yeah.
And he is polling ahead in suburban white married women right now. Harry Enton is quite desperate now. He went on CNN and was saying, well, right now, Harris is leading among college-educated white women. And I'm like, yeah, so next you're going to be saying that Harris is leading among redheaded, left-handed dwarfs. I mean, they keep narrowing the categories until it's meaningless. Look, the polling, there's still a few pollsters desperately clinging to this nonsense that Harris is up a couple of points, or I think one even has her up 5 points. This is just beyond stupid. This is the same poll that had Biden winning 2020 by 11, so they're only off by 9. But we've seen a pretty steady polling shift of Trump up in Pennsylvania now in almost every poll, and his internals say he's up more than 2. His internals say he's tied in Michigan. The last 3 Michigan pollsters say he's up by 1 in Michigan. Yeah. Virtually all of the data that we're looking at coming in from real data, whether it's early ballot requests or voter registration, are trending 2 to 3 points to the right of where 2020 was. And my co-host on Decision USA Election Night, Seth Keshel, rather than looking at polling, Seth is very big on looking at voter registrations and where they were compared to where the state voted in 2020. And what he's found is that Nevada is something like 5,000 or 6,000 more to the right. Pennsylvania is much more to the right. Every single state is much more to the right of where it voted. Pennsylvania came out today with new registration numbers that showed that the GOP has registered 60,000 new voters in a month, and that amounted to a 25,000 net gain. Here in Maricopa County, I just checked the number. We're at 171,000 net just in Maricopa County. Whole state was only plus 130,000 in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's looking like Arizona's way out of reach. Arizona's going to be plus 5 or 6 for Trump. Maybe enough to bring Kerry Lake over at this point. Pennsylvania, I really think that the Harris campaign's given up on Pennsylvania. They were counting on North Carolina, but the latest polling from North Carolina has Trump up 4. Even with the devastation in the western part of the state and the disproportionate number of Republicans out there, I think you're still only looking at a shortfall of maybe 40 or 50,000 Republicans in North Carolina, which I guess would be about a half a point. So you're looking at something like a 3.5 point Trump win in North Carolina in the most pessimistic circumstances. Virginia continues to trend strongly Republican. The vote overall has tailed down, but Harris was up, or strong Harris voting counties were up 18 points, but strong Trump voting counties were up almost 60 points. in the last week.
In early voting?
Yes, in early voting. So obviously those are less populated than some of the strong Harris counties, but nevertheless, it's looking like a very strong Republican turnout on election day and a somewhat weaker turnout for Democrats will give Virginia to Trump. So, I mean, I'm already onto the third tier. I'm convinced Trump has already won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia. And now I'm on to the next tier, which is Minnesota, Maine, Virginia, New Hampshire, and New Mexico, those 5 states. So we had a poll come out last week with Trump down just 4 points in New Mexico. Well, Trump always underpolls by 2. So that means really he's 2 points and you got a margin of error of 3 points. So New Mexico is very, very close.
Yeah, and it should be close, right? In an election like this, in a change election where there's only one change candidate, obviously, in the race. And, Harris has attempted and had, I think, some early success in portraying herself as a kind of a change agent in the election and separating herself from Biden. It almost seems like Biden is working at cross purposes with her. Now, she I think it was Thursday, she was about to go live up on CNN with a rally she was holding. I can't remember where, Vegas or somewhere. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden just shocks everybody and comes into the White House briefing room for the first time in his entire presidency. And of course, CNN can't go away from the president of the United States. He might actually mumble something important. And during his prepared remarks, he actually says Harris was intimately involved in every decision we made. Right? I mean, do you think it's possible? And Stu and I have talked about this several times, that he's really actively trying to undermine her campaign at this point?
Who knows? I don't know about any of these people. All I know is that Republicans need to get off this constant hand-wringing, fear-mongering where they're, oh, what are they going to do next? What are they going to say next? I don't care. They need to be worried about what we're going to do next, what we're going to say next, because this particular group, they may have been competent back under Obama in 2008, but this particular group is incredibly incompetent. They are absolute boobs, absolute fools. They can't do anything. They're stumbling around. And I think the latest attempt to shove Harris out there on all of these talk shows doing interviews, which is her weakest point.
Yeah.
I am stunned by Vice President Harris's interview with Call Me Daddy or whatever the heck this thing was. It's a sex show. And when you look at the 3 previous ones were how to perform oral activities for an hour and a half before that. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Well, she is in her element, right?
I didn't go there, but holy smokes, Batman. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I find it pretty amazing. And now she's going to do Howard Stern tomorrow. And of course, Stern's whole shtick is to get people on and take them down these roads into these explicit sex talks with him. And it's pretty amazing selection of shows to go on.
I want to know, will he show up in blackface again?
No, I think he's pretty well done with that.
I mean, who still watches Howard Stern? Unless they're like 60 or 70-year-old hippies that are smoking weed all day and watching porn. I mean, this guy's as irrelevant as almost anyone I can think of out there.
Hillary?
Yeah, he's got a big audience, but it's not nearly as big as it once was. I find it astonishing she's doing these things. This 60 Minutes interview that they keep kind of releasing little snippets of here and there. I know it's going to be heavily edited in her favor to try to cover for the worst parts of what she did in that interview. But even the snippets they're issuing are just terrible for her. It's just her answers are bizarrely bad. And
Yeah.
it's because she doesn't know anything about anything. And she
Right.
can't say what she really does know, of course. So Trump did the smart thing with that deal and said, no, I'm not going to do 60 minutes. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
And I think we're now finally, I think, past any danger of there being any more of these worthless debates. Don't you think?
Yeah. And another thing that really people have not been paying attention to, these staged rallies by Harris, which are 100% astroturf. You can't get away with that now because now we have GPS tracking data on the cell phones. And what we found is that virtually all of these Harris rallies are attended by the same people being bussed all around the country. The last one I saw, something like 80% of them had already been to 2 other rallies. The rally Trump held in Wisconsin was shocking because 20% of the cell phones were first-time voters.
Right. Yeah.
So you're seeing Trump pull in millions and millions of these first-time voters. Charlie Kirk took Turning Point USA over to Dream City Church and to ASU and registered over 800 Utes. So, it's just the difference is staggering.
He's a hoot.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk's fantastic. And, it's not just Trump's rallies. The Tucker Carlson events, tens of thousands of people showing up to hear Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and, whoever else he has a guest at any given time.
Jordan Peterson and
all over. They're going all over the country. They did one here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area last week, 18,000 people. And you have standing room only outside, just like the Trump rallies. It's an amazing movement. And I just feel like we're getting really close to that threshold where you have a fraud-proof margin here building.
Yeah.
In most every one of these swing states. There seems to be some concern about Florida. We've had several polls coming out of Florida by some of the usual suspect polling groups showing Florida, Trump with just a 4 to 2 point lead in Florida. And now you have another hurricane about to hit Florida later this week. Is there any chance in hell that Donald Trump doesn't win Florida by at least 8% of the vote?
8 points minimum. You got to remember that these people who poll Florida, other than Barris, they are the worst of the worst. They had back in 2018, they had DeSantis losing to Gillum's Island by 11. 11. Right. DeSantis won by over 1. So that's a 12-point miss. They're constantly missing the Senate races by 4 and 5 points. And since those misses, the Republicans in Florida have added, I don't know how many they've added. I know they're up to net over 1.1 million over Democrats. And the early votes that we've seen, early vote requests from Duval County, which is a key county, were off the charts in favor of Trump and Republicans. So this is just, it's just disgusting that these people put this stuff out there. But we have to understand that in 2016, for example, in Wisconsin, the average error, even by the good pollsters, was 6 points. One poll had Trump losing Wisconsin by 11, meaning they were off 12. The polls in Ohio are constantly 4 to 5 points low on Trump. They show him winning by 4. He comes in 8.5. This year he's going to take it by 10. So these are all here's the metric I'm looking for. I haven't seen it yet, but I have a feeling that the gears are moving and we just haven't seen it. I'm waiting for them to move the money to the Senate races, to finally just say, we're done with Harris and we've got to move the money, because there was a poll out last week. You take the polls you think make Trump look bad. Well, this was a 2-point lead for Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin Senate race over Hovitt. And that should be a warning klaxon to Democrats, because this is a seat, honestly, I did not have that one on my chart. I had absolute gains of West Virginia, likely gain of Montana and Ohio, possible gains of Arizona and Pennsylvania, and I didn't even have Wisconsin on there. I don't have Nevada on there either.
And there's been polls in Michigan too, showing that race really close as well.
Well, and if Trump wins Michigan by more than 2, Rogers will be the senator there. And I think Slotkin knows it. That's why she said over a week ago, we're underwater in Michigan. So I'm waiting to see the evidence of them moving the money to the Senate races. I haven't seen it yet, but I believe it's out there. I believe they're talking about it.
Well, they've been spending a buttload of money on Colin Allred here in Texas, who's running against Ted Cruz. He must have had $100 million at least to pour into this campaign. He's been up on TV since July. You just can't go through a commercial break anymore on local newscasts without seeing an Allred ad. And so, we've had some polls here recently in Texas showing that race pretty close, 4 to 6 points, 3 to 6 points. But Ted Cruz finally went up on the air over this past weekend, and that's going to change too. And I just think Cruz has the ads he's put up are really excellent, and he's going to win that race by 6 to 7% probably, and Trump's going to win Texas by 10% of the vote, just like Republicans always do.
Right.
So, if any of you out there are worried about Texas, don't be. It's just not going to happen for the Democrats.
Well, Seth Cashel put up a very good analysis yesterday of Nevada, and he has Trump winning Nevada by 38,000 votes. And he delves into county by county level and the shift in the counties and so on and so forth. The Democrats have lost almost 60,000 off their lead from 2020 when they won by 33,000. So they're already underwater, and now they're at 18,000 lead in Nevada and falling. I just think that Nevada's probably going to come along. It's I kind of have it right ahead of places like Michigan, Minnesota, but I think it'll come along. The rumblings on the ground in Michigan, for example, we had a head of an Arab group come out and say they will not support Harris. They're not going to support her. And of course, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had the mayor of Hamtramck say that he endorsed Trump. So,
right, yeah.
If you take that Arab vote away from Harris in Michigan, there's no way she can win. There's not enough voters in Wayne County to pull them over.
And the amazing thing is they've poured so much, not just money, but political capital into obtaining that Arab vote, the Palestinian vote in Rashida Tlaib's district in Michigan. And for them to be struggling with that particular voter segment now is truly amazing, really amazing. One of the most amazing developments of this race. And then I saw another one this morning, an amazing stat that it's just hard to believe. After all that, and despite all that, Jewish voters prefer Harris over Trump in a new poll out today, 64 to 35.
Yep.
How do we explain that? It's just stunning. It's just stunning to me.
Well, anyone who's read the Bible more than once knows that God did not call the Jews the stiff-necked people for nothing. That I've never seen an ethnic group less committed to their own survival, less willing to do the things that would ensure them to survive and prosper than the Jews. In America, in Europe, anywhere you go, it's like people like Netanyahu have to grab them by the tie and drag them to go do what must be done to ensure their survival, and they're fighting him the whole way. And the same thing with American Jews. They're IQ-wise, they are one of the very top groups in America. And for being that smart, they are the stupidest ethnic group I have seen.
It's really, and it's election after, it never changes. It just never changes. It's been 2/3, 1/3 forever. Catholics used to be that way, and now it's more like 60-40 deal with Catholics, which is in itself just really extraordinary given the Democrat Party's hatred of Catholicism and obvious overt hatred of Catholicism. Yeah. But that Jewish statistic just boggles my mind. Anyway.
I think there's a subgroup of the Klan called the KKCK, the Ku Klux Catholic Klan, because they're always going after the Catholics.
Yeah, they are. It's just amazing. It's astonishing. But in the meantime, though, you see Republicans making big inroads with Hispanic voters, with black voters, particularly black male voters who identify with Trump and all the persecution he's gone through the past couple of years with the lawfare effort by the Democrats. So that effort, I think when we get to the end of this campaign, and if Trump does win, which I now kind of expect that to happen, probably a 70% chance of that happening, I think we're going to look back and find two factors that just spelled death for the Democrats, regardless of who their nominee was. And the first one is that lawfare campaign. And then the second one is passing over Josh Shapiro as Harris's running mate in favor of this doofus from Minnesota. What do you think?
Well, there are definitely those. Long ago, maybe a year ago, I identified two Democrat civil wars. And one was the Jewish versus Palestinian Hamas civil war, which, as you mentioned, the Democrats have blown that. They couldn't help but blow it, but they blew it in favor of the Arabs who have rejected them, because I think they knew that the Jews were going to support them no matter what.
Yeah.
That didn't matter what sops they gave to the Arab community, that the Jews would still be there. But it has eroded their support. And then the other one was the illegal immigration, the criminal invaders in our inner cities versus the real residents of the inner cities who are demanding their share of the pie that they've been promised all these years. And now all that's going to the illegal criminal invaders. But let's get back to your point, because I think you're absolutely right in lawfare. The whole reason that Biden was still on the ticket in 2024 was that the Democrats were 100% convinced that lawfare was going to remove President Trump, and that they'd let Biden win the election, then they'd quietly remove him after the election for health reasons, right? But actually, I would go back further than Shapiro, and I would say their other point of incompetence, once again showing how incredibly stupid these people are at this time, was when they allowed Biden to name Harris as his VP. Whoever permitted that sealed off any future the party had, because she's just a blundering fool, a total airhead. I mean, she makes Biden look smart.
She really actually does, doesn't she? It's really
and so that was a critical mistake. I don't think Shapiro could have saved Pennsylvania. I hear a lot, well, Shapiro could have done better. I don't think he could have saved Pennsylvania, because right now Trump is totally in sync with Pennsylvanians. And you saw that with a rally where he had over 105,000 and almost 20 million streaming the rally.
That was nuts. I have Trump introducing Elon, and I think that's important enough just to do this 1 minute clip, if you don't mind, David.
Yeah,
it's an embarrassment to us. Can you imagine foreign leaders coming in and running over roads that haven't been paved in years? We're honored to be joined tonight by one of the people who is going to help us build this incredible future. And he is a truly incredible guy. And I don't say that often.
At the time, there were 7.2 million people watching this section right here.
He's a great gentleman. He's done such an unbelievable job for North Carolina, for Georgia, for Alabama, for Florida, for Tennessee. His name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech. He created so many different great things. Where is he? Come on up here, Elon. He created the first major American car company in generations, and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space.
Look at this. I love it.
Take over, Elon. Just take over.
This part I love, guys. I love Elon, and I love.
Hi, everyone. As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Dark MAGA.
Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be here. And, the true test of someone's character is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot. Fight, fight, fight. Blood coming down the face. Now, America is the home of the brave. And there's no truer test than courage under fire. So that
I'll tell you, I'm like, yay! And Elon, I do want to say this shout out right now. If you are watching this podcast, please go buy your Starlink Mini right now. It is phenomenal, and there are people that are in there that are out in the field right now saying that they drop these out there, and all of a sudden people are able to communicate what things are. So get those before there is a man-made or natural disaster in your area. Sorry.
Yeah, Stu, you make a really good point there. And as a historian, I always try to keep my eye open. Am I watching a pivotal event? Am I watching something that is really in 30, 40, 100 years going to be looked back at? And they say, wow, this was very important. Right. And I think the moment that Elon Musk's rocket rescued those NASA people was an absolutely pivotal moment in American history, because it showed for the first time really in 60 or 70 years that the private sector was obviously, clearly better able to do major operations than the government. And when you read in textbooks that the transcontinental railroads never would have been built without the government, and you ignore people like James J. Hill, who built one without the government, and now you're getting this same thing, which is, NASA is great at SpaceX. They're one agency that does things really well. Not anymore. And now you have a private citizen basically doing what NASA, with all of its billions of dollars, couldn't do.
Yeah. I'm partnership with Boeing, a company that is, I don't know. It seems to me Boeing's got to be doomed to the ash heap of history pretty soon. I don't know how it
go woke, go broke.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Stu, I interrupted.
Hey, you go woke, go broke. But hey, on that note, Elon, I love Elon, and what he's bringing to this. We've got to cut 90% of our government out to survive. The United States has been broke for years, and I see that is a potential. But Larry, you bring up a great point, and there are litmus tests for society. And I think when SNL actually starts making fun of you, you've lost. and I think
a real problem if you're a Democrat.
That's right. And I think, with your permission, David, I think this is a good time to show this.
Oh, yeah. This cold open was fabulous.
He's doing his thing, whatever that may be.
Come on, just relax. You haven't had a night off in 3 months. Do you want to watch something less stressful like the Menendez Brothers show?
I don't know, Dougie. I kind of wish I had picked Josh right now.
Oh, Josh Shapiro?
No, Josh. Cabernet.
Look, Tim'll be fine. It's not like he's going to say something crazy.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Okay. You can't buy that kind of. That's great to see SNL really kick in. But I have a unreleased copy here. This is pretty important, David, of a game show host that is now coming out. CBS has now got this coming out. Okay, are you ready? It's a new game show.
In the eyes of the other candidate, and whoever turns away is the chicken. You know the rules. Let's begin. May the best man win.
A staring contest. You gotta love it, David.
The stare down.
Wow. Why did you give up so easily, Governor? Are you admitting that you are in fact a chicken shit?
I come from
a middle class.
The final part.
A middle class family. I'm sorry, David. I had to get that off my chest.
So I want to go back to the Butler thing because Elon Musk said something there about courage, and courage under fire. And I just want to point out to people, I was very concerned actually about both Trump and Musk and J.D. Vance and so many other important Republicans being there at the same time on the same stage under the protection of the Secret Service, particularly at that particular scene where there'd already been one assassination attempt. I think we shouldn't lose perspective of the fact that it took courage for all those people to be there that day, Musk included. It was a hell of a risk. It was the most target-rich environment for Democrat-inspired lunatics in our society that there's ever been. And I'm just really happy.
Which is to say all of them.
Right. It just is, we've seen it happen twice already. I still expect there to be at least one more attempt on Trump's life before this election. And because it's all they got left. I mean, they've tried everything else to do away
let's go
with
down
him.
two rabbit holes here. First, this is just my opinion. I don't have evidence. It's just a gut feeling I have. We know that the leadership at Secret Service is totally useless, compromised,
totally
just idiots. But I got the sense somewhere that mid-level people who really believed in the mission of the Secret Service mobilized and went to these people and said, we're going to protect who we're scheduled to protect, who we're assigned to protect. And we're not going to have any more of this again. And I think the push, again, just my gut instinct, is that the push to increase security and to make sure that there aren't any more shootings came from the middle up. I think that there's still people in the Secret Service, unlike the FBI, who are patriotic Americans who are willing to buck the system to make sure that things get done right. The other rabbit hole,
Bongino says too, and Bongino knows.
Yeah, well, he would know.
Yeah.
And Bongino needs a place in this administration, a place where he can wield a very heavy hand and smack people like
director of the Secret Service. That'd be good.
Well, there you go. The other rabbit hole, though, that's still interesting, because just yesterday, another New York aide to Eric the Red Adams has resigned because she's under investigation. So let's review. 2001, Andrew Cuomo, Governor Nipplepin Vent Hoarder, as I call him, resigned.
Well,
okay. Then you had Hochul's aide resign and is under investigation. Then you had they were police chiefs, right? 2 New York police chiefs. I get NYPD and NYFD mixed up, and I'm pretty sure they were PD, right? Step down and are under investigation. Then you got the closest aide to Eric Adams under investigation for campaign funds associated with the Chi-Coms. Then you got Eric Adams stepping down, or not stepping down, but being indicted for the same kind of Chi-Com related bribery things, except they threw in Turkey now. The Turks and the Chi-Coms operate so closely together these days. And just now you have yet one more of these New Yorkers stepping down under investigation. And then let's throw in P. Diddley, who is still languishing out there in the Jack Ruby room of the Jeffrey Epstein wing of the jail. So that's a lot of people across the spectrum, top to bottom, across the board, police, mayor, governor, entertainment, all going down at the same time. And that's why I don't think this is aimed just at Eric the Red Adams. I think it is aimed at something else inside New York, and I don't know by who or for what reason, but it's clear some Night of the Long Knives is at work in New York.
Yes, apparently it is. So how long do you think Adams can hold out before he actually is forced to resign? The problem here is that, of course, this guy is, I never thought it would be possible for New Yorkers to elect a worse mayor than Bill de Blasio, but they did.
Yeah.
And, but as bad as he is, apparently the guy that would step in for him if he resigns is just miles and miles worse.
Yes.
and would just completely destroy the city like that idiot's doing to Chicago. And of course, Chicago's anyway, it's another story. But so you're almost left with trying to hope that Adams can just hold on until there can be, the next election, whenever that is, which I think is still 2 years away. So it's just a horrible situation for such a what used to be a great city. I haven't been there in a while, but
I hate going there. I just hate. Fox used to have me on all the time. I would just hate going to that city, and it stinks, and the noise never ends. They say it's a city that never sleeps. That says nobody can get any sleep there because the garbage trucks are running at 2 a.m. right?
I think
it's always under construction. There's always junk on the sidewalks. You're walking, you're always wondering if you're going to get hit in the head by a falling beam or concrete block or something. I just hate New York. I always hated going there. The only city I hate going to worse is Washington, D.C., where I feel like I need a shower the minute I get off the plane. It's like when you go to one of these South American banana republics and it's so humid that the second you get off the plane, you need a shower. That's the way D.C. is becoming because of the corruption there. So if Letitia James was at all bright, I might suggest she had some role in all this stuff, but I don't think she's smart enough to pull all this off. Yeah. So there is a question out there: who is going after? There was a movie a long time ago with George Segal. Someone is killing the great chefs of Europe. Well, somebody is taking out all the leadership of New York, and we need to know why and who.
We'll find out. I know it's coming. I think because when people understand that when you stand up against the Democrat machine, you will be taken out. The other thing that is, we are not talking enough about child trafficking.
Right.
In child trafficking, they say that they've lost 320,000 kids on the border. I believe that number in my heart to be 600,000. And this to me is the most reprehensible thing on the planet, is that this administration has been at the forefront of human sexual trafficking and should be admonished unbelievably for this. And if anybody thinks that this is about anything else, this is about the failure of this administration in the child trafficking. And I think P. Diddy is a perfect example that there is hope that if this thing does come through, and you're going to see that one attorney that has had, they have 100 people working the phone lines for the diddler line, as you called it, I believe.
Tony Busby down in Houston. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I hope they just prosecute all of Hollywood. I mean, everybody that is in this mix needs to go down.
Well, there was a great story out over the weekend about Denzel, who he's one of the finest stand-up guys in all of Hollywood. And he was invited years ago to one of these parties. And when he saw what was going on, he started chewing these people out. And what are you doing? How can you debase yourself like this? And then he left. About 6 or 8 months ago, I forget how long ago, when James O'Keefe went to the border, one of our close friends' son was the chauffeur on one of the trucks, the Hummers that they had leased to go down there. And he followed the whole process with O'Keefe and noted that when the children come across, they were separated and put into buses that went somewhere, and no one knew where, into the middle of America. And I guarantee you that once they left the border, nobody except a child rapist was ever going to see any of those kids again, because they were put into the human trafficking system and were just gone. So you're absolutely right. This whole thing needs to come down. I don't know if you saw this, Dave and Stu. There was a interview with Eric Weinstein by some podcaster. I guess he's a big name podcaster. You know who Eric Weinstein is?
Yeah, he's the biggest piece of human excrement on the planet.
Well, and he was saying that, what he was saying was true, was that we've totally lost trust in all of our institutions.
Yeah.
And he was trying to make the argument that you can't do that. You need to get some of these institutions back. And my view is that they're so far
Wait,
gone.
am I getting the wrong Weinstein? Are you talking about the lawyer who was at DOJ, who basically ran the Mueller investigation?
I don't think that's him. He's a scholar at Harvard.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I apologize to Eric Weinstein. I'm getting my Weinsteins mixed up.
And he's engaged in a lot of debates with Sam Harris, which I find to be fruitless because this guy is fruitless. But his point was, no, we can't destroy all these institutions. That's going too far. You know, they need to be reformed. And it reminded me of the debate between the Puritans within England and the Pilgrims, who said, you know, the one group says, oh, we can fix England from within. Well, they did eventually, but it took a civil war and a guy named Oliver Cromwell to do it. But the other guy said, no, we can't fix it from within. We're going to America. We'll start over.
Yeah. Hey, I want to go back to Tony Busby for a second because people don't know who he is. And I want to remind people who he is, okay? Because if you're thinking, well, this is just some hack lawyer out of Houston trying to make a bunch of money at Diddy's expense, I want to remind you, this is the same lawyer who had more than 120 women willing to testify against the quarterback for the Texans at the time, whose name now I'm going to forget, Deshaun Watson, who's now with the Cleveland Browns and playing like doo-doo. And they were all telling the truth, and he spent a lot of time vetting them, and they were telling the truth. He's also the lawyer who defended our attorney general here in Texas when our drunk speaker, Dade Phelan, and his minions were trying to impeach him. Tony Busby's the guy that went in there with a buzz saw and tore that case up, shredded every witness they put on the stand. And that's why our attorney general is still our attorney general. So Tony Busby is a bulldog lawyer. He's the real deal. He's one of the best trial lawyers in Texas. And if he's got 120 people willing to testify against Diddy, he's vetted them, and they're credible people. And this is why, and the bottom line here, and all this discussion about it being by and large about child trafficking and that all being involved in this, is why I don't believe Diddy is ever going to stand trial. And I think he'll probably be suicided before that happens, because Diddy's associate list has some of the biggest names in our society on it. And it's the same reason why Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself in that federal prison too. So
I find it odd that the list that I saw included some of the same people on the Epstein list,
yes,
that were on the same list, and they range from the Clintons to the Obamas, and it is a heck of a list if they're potentially on there.
Yeah,
Oprah Winfrey and Brad Pitt and a lot. Usher, Will Smith.
The one lady that says she is negotiating with the owners or the person that's on that video because it's about to be released. There are TV stations that are negotiating for this one for a raping of a individual we all know. This is despicable that this is even being bought.
Yep.
Yeah, it may be the only way we can get this stuff out, though. So I'm torn on that. You can't say we don't ever want to show any of this. There's no way to, because the DOJ is not going to do it. Nobody who's going after P. Diddley is going to do any of this. It needs to be got out.
It does.
And by the way, the other thing everyone also needs to be aware of is that this all goes back to Harvey Weinstein too. Okay, a lot of the very same people you will find across the associates of Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and Diddy. It's all the same people, including Oprah. Since we brought her up, she's on all those lists.
It's interesting how, and I'm not sure, I haven't done a cultural look at this, but it's interesting how much movies overall have collapsed once Weinstein went out. As perverted and weird as he is, I have a feeling that he provided some sort of guide rail to say, no, the public won't buy this. You can't show this kind of garbage. You've got to have entertaining movies. And if Weinstein could do anything right, it was that he knew what made an entertaining movie. Just go back and look at all the movies you like and see how many of them have Miramax on the front.
Right.
Which brings me kind of to the Joker movie, which I love saying this.
I was going to bring
that
that
new
up.
Woker movie is a hideous collapse. It did a grand total of $9 million in its opening. Folks, this is a movie that was produced for $200 million, not counting at least $50 million in marketing. The old rule of thumb in film was that you had to make all your money back for production costs on week one. Right. And so now they're about $241 million short of doing that. And it may sink Warner Brothers.
Dennis Quaid's Reagan movie made twice that much on it.
That's right. But it's still not profitable, but it did much better.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, that I think we're getting close to the United Artists moment in Hollywood. Many of you may not remember this movie for good reason, but Chris Christopherson died last week, and he was in this movie. He was the star, and it was called Heaven's Gate. Yeah. And it was where the studio at United Artists gave Michael Cimino, because he had just done Deer Hunter and another really big movie there at the time, and they gave him free reign, and he spent money like it was water and bankrupted United Artists Studios, which was a very good studio. It was founded by Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Charlie Chaplin. One of the things Cimino did, and you'll appreciate this, he wanted a really green meadow for all of the cattle. And he was up in Montana, and the grass wasn't green enough, so he ripped up all the grass and put down an irrigation system, underground sprinklers, to make Montana grass greener.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate was, 79 or 80? And they spent something like $130 million on it, which is $500 million in today's money.
And it killed Christopherson's career as an A-list actor. He never got another A-list gig after that movie.
Yeah, Chris Christopherson, we should say rest in peace to him, one of the great songwriters of the 60s and 70s.
I was in a movie with him. Well, so they filmed A Star Is Born here in Tempe at Sun Devil Stadium, and they had 5 great rock and roll acts, Santana, Peter Frampton, L.A. Jets, a couple of others. And that's the way they got all the kids in to be the audience for the night scene, right? And so I went with my singer friend, and we said, well, we want to actually watch the stuff from above. We don't want to be part of the audience. So we went up to the side of the stage up in the bleachers there at Sun Devil Stadium and could watch the whole thing. So we were out of camera shot, but I was in that movie.
That's awesome. So one of the best days of my life, I'm going to date myself completely here. 50 years ago this month, I saw at the Armadillo World Headquarters in Austin, Texas, it was an old National Guard armory they turned into a concert hall. I paid a $6 cover charge to see Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Leon Russell, and Chris Christopherson all on the same bill.
Wow.
Armadillo. 50 years ago.
Well, those guys, Waylon and Buck Owens and Johnny Cash and some of the others used to play out in Glendale at Mr. Lucky's nightclub all the time. I mean, almost every other week you'd go out there and be one of those 4 guys, and you could just pay $5 and walk in for a whole night with them.
Yeah. Those were different times. Golly, guys, this has been fun. I think we've pretty much covered the landscape. What do you think? Okay, so we're a month away. We're 4 weeks away from the election. I'm going to make a prediction. Let's do predictions. How's the election going to come out? You first, Larry.
Trump with minimum of 312 electoral votes, maximum of 340. I think he wins the popular vote by at least a point. We take the Senate. Republicans take the Senate by 3 seats, West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana. As of today, I would have us losing Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin very narrowly. But again, the trends are such that it'd be very easy for those three seats to also go Republican.
Stu?
I like what he said. I would be incredibly happy if that happens. I think that's an optimal message to send. I think depending on the cheat, on how accurate your prediction is. And what I fear is that there are some, like Laura Trump has done a phenomenal job getting all the poll watchers, but there is some stuff going on with an attorney, I believe, that is a rhino that has announced that he is a poll watcher, I believe, in Arizona. I could be wrong.
He just resigned. This was a guy who had not done a good job in fighting this deal. And he just resigned 4 days before the party was to deliver its counter argument to this new business of some 200,000 people. And remember, of those 200,000, that's not 200,000 Democrats. That's a split. And given the way the registrations are going, it's entirely possible that a majority of those may be Republicans. The Democrats, again, are stupid this time around. And I think they are stabbing themselves in the foot repeatedly. But you're right. This particular guy, if they replace him with somebody decent, it'll be a net gain.
So my answer is, I am tired of stealing the election, and it needs to be permanently stopped. I loved Laura Trump when she stood up at the rally in Butler and said, if you vote as an illegal alien or you're a poll worker, we will come prosecute you. I think that is the only way we will save this country.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that needs to be one of their top priorities, and it just puts the spotlight on the selection for Attorney General. He has to get it right this time. He can't have two bad choices again.
Paxton would be great.
Paxton would be wonderful. Let's go with Jim Paxton. I'm done. I think we're going to see something.
You mean Ken? I don't want the shooting guard for the Bulls to be my Attorney General.
No. Ken Paxton, our Attorney General in Texas, is a good man and a great Attorney General. I got it 296 electoral votes, dead even in the popular vote. I agree with you completely on the Senate. And the only reason I'm at 296 on the electoral votes is I do think the Democrats will be able to steal enough votes to win one or two of these key states that they otherwise would lose. So that's where I am on that. And, maybe that opinion will change over the next few weeks. We'll do this every week, see if our opinions change between now and then. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good, feeling salty about this election, boys.
I don't know, but I think that
you should. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look,
I'll tell you what, you can't buy that kind of entertainment. Holy
You
moly.
cannot buy that kind of entertainment. I'd pay to see it. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Somebody needs to do a picture of him surrounded by 4 or 5 of these school shooters, right? The photos of these school shooters.
I have that. I'll have to show that next time.
Oh, wait, put the Kamala Harris book back up.
Okay.
There's a great video out on Twitter. Just go out and Google the achievements of Kamala Harris. It's well, just watch the video. You're gonna love it.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Anyway, shortest book in history. Here we go. All right, boys. We'll talk to you next Monday. Thank you, everybody.
See you, David.